Okay, I wanted to talk about matchmaking inside Pokemon Unite, and really, where do I begin with this? I have a lot of thoughts on the new matchmaking system inside Pokemon Unite. Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw. First off, I will say, I don't even know if this should be first off, but they have screwed something up. So the way that they originally pitched it and the way it was supposed to run is not how it is running. I will get to that here in a minute. For everyone out there who feels like you're having a better ranked matchmaking experience, let me tell you, so far, nothing really has changed in the matchmaking setup for Unite. Basically, nothing has changed. I've played matches earlier. I still have people in my games. I had someone in my game with 170 matches earlier. The way that they are supposed to be pooling players is sort of by these brackets as best they can, you know, between your master rank rating from 1200 to 1399, and then 1400 to 1599, and higher and higher and higher. For a majority of the player base, a large majority of the player base, the matchmaking will not change one bit. In fact, in some situations, I could say it could be even worse than it was before, because it will be almost impossible for the majority of players to experience the higher level of matchmaking that you can get to in this game. One, because I do think they made a mistake with how they're allocating points, and two, just because you have to win at such a high rate to actually get into any type of matchmaking change over the course of the season. So it's going to be way into the season, and you have to be winning at a very, very high rate, that I think a very small number of players will be affected by this change at all in a positive way. Some players will be affected by this in a negative way, because you will just be kind of hanging out in this general, like the queue in some ways may become even more general than it was before. So let me talk about the error that I'm referencing here. So when they pitched this system, they said they were going to change the amount of points that you got in a match of Unite. So when you were in Master Rank between 1200 and 1399, you get 11 points for a win, 8 for a loss. Now that's not exactly right, by the way. There are times I've gotten less than 11 for a win. I've gotten like 10 for a win or something like that. But the big area, the 1400 to 1599, which is essentially kind of like that rung you get to after you are in the most populated player base. It would be like the higher and higher you get, of course, the amount of players in it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which is what you would expect for a ranking system. That's not odd at all. So you move up to the 1400 to 1599, where you are going to win and get 9 points and lose 9 points. Basically, if you are at 50% win rate, once you're in the 1400s, you will not climb at all. You will stay stagnant. You will win and lose the exact same amount of points. Previously, you would win more and lose less. You would win 9, lose 6. That's how people would climb to 1600 even with a negative win rate. Now, this is not what is happening in the game. In fact, what is happening in the game right now is when you win, you are winning 8, and when you lose, you are losing 10. Which means in the 1400 to 1599 area, your win rate has to be pretty dang good if you are playing solo queue to climb to 1600. And I would wager that maybe the smallest percentage of players playing solo queue would get anywhere close to 1600 with this current point value, because you would need to be winning at a rate of about 58% or so of your games, and that would be if you're playing an insane amount of games. Even if you are winning 60% of your games, you are not climbing out of the 1400s anytime soon. And 60% win rate for a solo queue player is pretty dang good. Normally on a season, I'll sit somewhere between, I'd say like 56% and maybe 58%. This season, we're hanging out at 59.7%. We've had a pretty decent season so far. And even at this rating, I will not climb to 1600 without playing an absurd number of games. And realistically, I mean, 60% is a pretty high win rate to try to hold on to as a solo queue player. For duos, trios, especially 5 stacks, your win rate, if you're playing well, should be much, much higher. But with such a little amount of the game under your control, 60% is not going to get you to climb very fast. In fact, if you had what I would consider to be a pretty good win rate in solo queue of 55%, that's a pretty solid win rate for a solo queue player. You're playing support, defender, you're playing lots of different Pokemon. 55, I think, is a solid win rate. You're a decent player in solo queue. You actually will lose rating at 55%. Now, I do think they have done this incorrectly, and this is supposed to be different, but with their current system, you will never get out of the 1400 to 1599 matchmaking area. And even in there, all the games that I've experienced in there have multiple players in the 1200 to 1399 category. Again, we had a player on stream earlier who had less than 200 games to his name. Now, I do need to say that I did not expect matchmaking to be fixed overnight. Of course not. I understand with the system they were creating, this actually is sort of a longer term fix that hopefully what they would try to do is reset players to different levels. For instance, if you're 1200 in master rank and you're staying there because you have a sub 50% win rate by the end of the season, you should probably be put down to, you know, veteran rank or something like that and have to climb your way back out with a at least 50% win rate. And then if you're in the 1200s and you make it to the 1400s, maybe they put you at the start of Ultra. If you're up into the 1600 plus, maybe you start master rank 1200. If they were to do something like that long term, I could see this system very slowly over a long period of time being slightly better. But the way they currently have it, the only people this system benefits are good duos and moderately good trios and up, right? Because when you're a trio, your win rates, I mean, your win rate should probably be like 65, 70% if you're a decent trio, right? Your trios, and then of course 5 stacks, who are naturally going to have the highest win rate possible if they are playing well together. For everyone else, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here when I am saying probably 90% of the player base, this change does not affect them at all. Mostly, I think, not mostly, but partially because they're awarding points incorrectly, but also because if you are never going above 1599, most all players would never go above 1599. The matchmaking change that we have, if they end up finally actually pairing the players together accurately, which I don't know if they will, because from all of the games I've played, even as we're moving through the 1400 plus, they're still pairing down at 1200. If they are starting to pair them better, we are talking about a change for such a small slice of the player base. Such a small slice. I'm curious. I feel like I'm in the top 10,000 players right now in the game, and I'm mid 1400s. So, I mean, at that point, how many players are we possibly talking about? Oh, yeah, okay. I ended my stream at 1418, going up and down. I am one of the top 3,500 players in the world in Pokemon Unite. So we are saying that I don't know how high it would go, but to the point where you're getting to 1600. What a small group of players this matchmaking is not necessarily, but possibly benefiting. In fact, if we look at the top 100 players currently in the game, number 100 is sitting at under 1,800 points for the season. I recognize the more that they play, the higher this will go, but that is the top 100 players in the game. 100 people in the game. And someone's not even at 1,800. And of course, when you take a look at a player like this with a 69% win rate, they are playing a majority of their games in a queue with allies. They are all of these games they are playing with allies. So the only players that this matchmaking is affecting are players who are already playing duos and trios, and the absolute smallest percentage of solo queue players that could ever exist. And even a small percentage of duos and trios as well, but the absolute smallest amount of solo queue players possible. To have a 70% win rate as a solo queue player, especially with how matchmaking has been in the game and how matchmaking still clearly appears to be functioning, it appears to function almost the exact same from all of the games I'm seeing. I still have games where everyone on my team is sub 50% besides me. I still have games where the enemy trio has, 25,000 games at a 65% win rate, and my trio has, 4,000 games at a 51% win rate. Like, given how the game is pairing for solo queue players, to have a 70% win rate, you are playing only the meta or extremely strong meta carry Pokemon, and you are a phenomenal player. And that's great. That's awesome that there are, a few players out there like this. But what we are talking about is a matchmaking change that is beneficial to who? Who does this benefit? Almost nobody. I hope as the season goes on, it starts to get better. I hope they fix the amount of points that they're awarding after matches, so at least players that have a positive win rate can start to climb into the 1600 plus for Master Rank. Because in theory, a player with a positive win rate is actually supposed to be able to climb into the 1800s in this system. That is not how they are awarding points right now. And if that was the case, if they were awarding points like that, you actually might get to see a 65% win rate solo queue player, a 60% win rate solo queue player, 55%, 50, and they all have different games that they are more likely to queue into. But with their current system and the way they are currently awarding points in this system, you are not going to see any changes for 90+% of the player base. I've got maybe like 80% of the player base. We'll see no change at all, and they might even see worse games because now they're in sort of this general queue that they didn't used to be in. They used to be in more of an MMR queue, and maybe they were sort of, moderately okay win rate, like 51% win rate. They'd be paired with some better players, but now they're basically in a queue where you are boarding a flight for Southwest Airlines. Whatever seat, it's just whatever seat's available. That is the current queue. That's what it is like in my games. We have a decent win rate this season, and with the points being allocated, there's no way I can climb to 1600 without playing an absurd amount of games because they're awarding points wrong. I hope this system gets better. I hope they fix the way they are awarding points, and I hope we actually do get to see players separated a little more, kind of based on how well they're playing this game. Because if you are awarding points evenly, 9 for a win, 9 for a loss, like they should be, a 50% win rate player will stop right there, and a player that's better will keep going. Then they get to the next rung, where you award 1 more point for a loss than you would for a win, and a player with a positive win rate can climb a bit, but they find a place that they're stuck at. The current system, almost no one will climb higher than 1400 to 1599. And it's just disappointing because I was really excited to see matchmaking changes in Unite, and I'm still hoping that something cool can come from it, but it's just a mess. It's not even done right. The points aren't even awarded properly, which is frustrating, but there you go. That's my rant on matchmaking. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will see you all next time. We did it.